No. So yesterday we finished the mimer, which was said in Tafkuf Samach Gimel. Right? I think it was in Tafkuf Samach Gimel. The original mimer was said. No, sorry, Tafkuf Samachet. 1808. And now we'll learn the beer. The beer was a few weeks later. He explained. What?
It's not the Chassidic.
No, it's the Alter Rebbe. It's from Kaf Chet Tammuz, Tafkuf Samachet. Shabbos Matos Maseh. So it was just after Shavuos. It was a few weeks after Shavuos. The original mimer that we learned the first 2 times this week, it was from Shavuos.
You said it on Shavuos?
Okay. That's what I remember. Hope I'm right.
He used to write the memoirs down and give them written out?
I don't know. I'm not sure if he wrote them down afterwards and gave them, or whether he wrote them out before. What we have is not in his handwriting. It's in handwriting of other people. So this one is from Rav Pei, which is Pinchas, right? Right? It's Peretz or Pinchas?
Where?
Anachot Arap. Who's the Anachot Arap? See, if I don't know this, how can I expect to know anything?
I don't see the pay. Where do you see the pay? Oh,
So interestingly, they don't write anything about but Pinchas Mishklov.
the famous one.
Yeah. היה מגדולי תלמידיו של רבינו הזקן. He was one of the great students of the Alter Rebbe. The biography of the first 3 Rebbeim of Chabad, הרב החסיד המפורסם רב פנחס ז"ל משקלוב, בן הגאון רב חנוך חנך שיק, so his last name was שיק. תלמיד מובהק לרבנו נשמתו עדן, ואחר כך לבנו אדמו"ר אמצעי, so it was both by the Alter Rebbe and by the Middler Rebbe. ורבותינו הקדושים היו מחבבים אותו מאוד, והם מגלים לפניו כל מסתורין וכל אשר הם עושים הוא היה עושה. So he was like a meshamish. They told him everything. That's what he says.
He had no children.
בעת החתונה של בת אדמו"ר האמצעי, so the Middler Rebbe's daughter's marriage to the Reb Mottel's son, עם בן הרב הקדוש מצ'רנוביל בשנת תקע"א, שהיה זה בחיי רבנו, and the Alter Rebbe was still alive, of course, it's 1811. קרא אותו רבנו החדרה עם בנו, so he called him in with his son, with the Middler Rebbe, וסימהו לעומד על המשמר שלאחר הסתלקותו יהיו נעשים פדיונות על ידי בנו הנ"ל דווקא ולא על ידי זולתו. And he entrusted him ולא על ידי אחר, לא על ידי זולתו. So he entrusted him that he would make sure that the Middler Rebbe would be the Rebbe afterwards and not somebody else. ולאחר פטירת רבנו כתב מכתב לאנה שלו להודיעם קושת דברי רבנו נשמתו עדן. So he wrote a letter, there's apparently some letter that he told them about this, what happened during the wedding. הוא היה רושם דח של רבנו בדקדוק גדול מאוד, so he would write down the Chassidus with taking great care for detail. והאדמו"ר בעד צמח צדק היה סומך על רשימותיו יותר מעל כל הרשימות. So the tzemach tzedek, when he came to write his notes on what the Alter Rebbe taught, he trusted Reb Pinchas's notes more than any of the others. היה עשיר גדול ובעל צדקה גדול מאוד. He was very wealthy and big בעל צדקה, ונפטר בלובביץ' בערך בשנת תקפ"ה. Wow.
Which was?
1825. So he lived after the Alter Rebbe another 12 years. והניח עיזבון גדול לצדקה, ערך 90,000 רובל כסף סיגנציות. I don't know what that means.
He had a stone house. He had a brick house, which is very rare. You have to be very rich to get a stone house.
So there's not very much on him.
And he rode a hobby horse through the town.
He wrote what?
He rode on a hobby horse through the town. You don't know this story? The Schmolmonkers? Shmuel came to his house and nobody was in, so let himself in. And he went to sleep on one of the beds in his muddy boots and filthy clothes. And covered all the eiderdowns with mud and bots. And Pinchas came in and said, listen, my house is your house, but couldn't you taking your boots off? He says, Gashmis is more important to you than Ruchnis. He says, you failed. He says, how can I do a tikkun? He says, you have to take a hobby horse. You know, that's like a stick with a head on it, and ride it through the town. So he did. That's the story.
Every time somebody does that to me, I say thank you.
What?
Every time somebody insults me deeply, I learn to say thank you.
Sure.
So yesterday I had somebody insult me deeply, and I wrote to him to say thank you. He didn't know where it hit him from. So, crazy Jews. Anyway. So Biur al Pasuk V'nifa Kohen Otam. So this Reb Pinchas wrote. It's Pinchas of Shklov. So to understand this, we first have to understand the difference between chaos and cosmos, between Tohu and Tikkun. Right? So we know them as two different worlds, but really, in terms of the soul, we've seen Maimarim on this. It's a very particular difference, a very particular change in the way the psyche acts. The root of man's soul is in the world of cosmos, of order, the rectified world. And that's what it says, Naseh Adam B'Tzelmeinu. So, because there's like many forces coming together. That's the world of Tikkun. He's going to explain that the world of Tikkun is when there's many things that can operate together. So that's why it writes it in the plural. We'll make man in our image. Who's we? There's a million different answers. Okay? God and the angels, God and the animals, God and this, God and that. There's a variety of different things. But the thing that's that doesn't matter what you say, God and something, what that other something is. The thing that strikes you is, what in the world are you talking about? God needs something else. But that's the world of Tikkun. The world of Tikkun is when Hashem joins forces, as it were, with something else. When things join forces, that's the definition of Tikkun. Okay? So whether it's Hashem or anybody else, it doesn't matter. The point is that there's an ability to join forces. So that's why it's in the plural. We'll make man. Let us make man, us. Achen shorish datzach, the domem tzomeh chai, the inanimate, the vegetable, and the animal life, umibchinat olam hatov shekadam leolam tikkun. There, it comes from the world of chaos. And chaos, by definition, means that there's no cooperation. Everything stands by itself. That's why you see in the beginning that when a child is born, we're talking about how you prepare somebody for death, because death is the opposite. Is the opposite of being born. It's a process, just like being born is a process. So the process when you're born is usually when children are born, they can only tolerate one thing. So you give them mother's milk. They can't tolerate anything else. And then they begin to tolerate other things. So they can have a little, mashed potatoes, they can have a little this, a little that. But still you can't mix them up. It has to be one thing at a time. I mean, you can make it into a mush, and then it's all like, so it's one thing that's a mush. But you can't do anything complex. You can't do anything. You can't go. So they write on it, mashed potatoes, chicken, and I don't know what else. They do that for the parents, because the parents think that you have to have a well-balanced meal. That's not the body in the beginning. The body in the beginning is not well-balanced. It doesn't work on balance. There's no cooperation yet. Everything is one track. And then when the child grows up, even when you offer them on their plate different things, everything has to be not touching the other thing. They can't touch. So I could maybe eat beans and potatoes and a little bit of chicken, but God forbid they should touch each other, because it become, tummy. They become ritually impure, and I can't put it into my mouth anymore.
I don't ever remember seeing that.
You don't remember? All my kids had this. I remember I had it. So it takes a while until you learn to enjoy something more complex. So a refined palate is somebody who can, take a bite out of his steak and wash it down with wine, and on the way add some sauce or something, and then you have this explosion of different tastes in your mouth, and that's considered a refined taste. Okay? So that's a sign of the world of rectification, where there's cooperation between different things. There's a balance. It's complex. Okay? In the world of chaos, everything is separate. So the children in the beginning, they're from the world of chaos still, not because they are, because the soul isn't from there, but their body is from there. The body is still working at the level of chaos.
But there are plants and animals which cooperate with each other. That's why you have parasites that live on the body.
That's why you call it a parasite, because it's not real cooperation. It's live and let live, at best.
And you have trees, and underneath the roots of the trees you have animals wandering around.
But it's not to build something together.
They don't walk hand in hand.
Right.
But they don't go and destroy each other either.
They do sometimes, and sometimes they don't. It depends on what the balance of power there is. But it's always a balance of power. It's not cooperation in order to create something bigger. And that's the sign of rectification. So when people can cooperate, when things can become more balanced, more composite, containing many different elements that normally would be each looking after its own interests.
Okay, excuse this stupid question, but how does Tikkun and Toho fit in with before Tzilas, after Tzilas, before Ag, after, the creation? Because I thought that creation could only start once you start the Tzimtzum.
Right.
And I always thought that Tohu was before the Tzimtzum. And Tikkun was after the Tzimtzum.
No. Toho and Tikkun are both after the Tzimtzum.
Okay, so they're creations?
Everything is a creation. The only question is whether God's essence is revealed or not revealed.
Because it says in Bereshit that the world was
no, so the Aretz was Tohu Vavol.
Okay. So that's already after Tzimtzum.
Okay, obviously. All of Toho and Tikkun are parts of the creative process. Any creative process, by the way. Okay. When an artist is staring at a blank canvas, that requires tzimtzum. If you want, the question we were dealing with the last 2 days and we just talked about, the Dibur HaMaskil, the title of every mimer. In a certain sense, it's a blank canvas. It's just I chose this canvas today. And then I have to go through some kind of tzimtzum in order to start painting on it. So the pasuk in the beginning, the verse in the beginning is like a canvas. Let's see what I can paint on it. And so what comes after, it doesn't come, maybe it comes by looking at the canvas and then going through the process of tzimtzum, but to actually write something down, to actually paint something on the canvas, you have to go through some kind of contraction.
So where's Shviras HaKelim?
After you start, then you have to tear it apart.
No, Shviras HaKelim I thought was what made Tohu.
No, Shviras HaKelim happened in Tohu. It happened because it was lack of cooperation. If there would have been cooperation, it's like saying that on a canvas, it probably doesn't even happen exactly on the canvas. Maybe it happens on the the easel, where he's got his colors. So in the beginning, you try to create pure colors, and then you start mixing them. So when there are pure colors still, then you have to destroy it, because that's not what you want to put on your canvas. You've got to create these mixtures. So the mixtures are already the beginning of the world of tikkun, of refinement.
Okay.
וכמו שכתוב באידרא, בעניין עולם התוהו, וגילים את התיקון הדעת האדם, לא ישתכח, לא יכילו למיקה. יהיה שם שבחינת עולם התיקון ובחינת אדם. So he says in the Idra Zuta, which is coming up, because that's the day that Rashbi passed away. Lag BaOmer. So this is also related to Lag BaOmer. So he revealed on that day that in the world of chaos, why was it that way? Because we couldn't find the form. Tikkuna is like also form. So we couldn't find the form of a man. So nothing could stand. Meaning that the world of rectification, refinement, depends on the form of man. Why the form of man? Because man is complex. He's taken from everything. That's why it says, Naseh Adam, will make man. To make man, you have to have a complex, composite form that contains everything that came before.
What did come?
Everything was separate. Like saying that now when I'm going to draw on the canvas, it's going to be the mixtures and not the pure colors.
I thought the mixture was the physical and the ruch. The Kodesh Baruch Hu breathed into
That
man.
too. There's many levels. But the main thing is in the spiritual, that the spiritual is composite. I was thinking in the example of a painter painting. So when the pure colors are not even on the easel; they're in the tubes that you push it out of. So like pushing it out, that's like the beginning of the fall of the world of chaos. You have to break the seal. You have to get it out and start mixing it on the easel for there to be a painting. So the same thing here. The animals are one-minded. There's no composite. There's no complex reality capable in their form. It's not that they can't think, but they can think one track, one mind, always. והעניין יובן ממה שאנו רואים למטה באדם בחינת מציאות נבדל מכל הברואים. To understand this, we can see that man is separate. He's different than the rest of the creatures. שהוא מושל בכל הברואים. He overrules all the creatures. כמו שכתוב, וירדו בדגת הים. It says you will be sovereign over the fish of the sea and so on. And what does that mean? Meaning that he's above everything. Meaning he's above means that he can relate to all of them. To be above, you have to be able to relate. A king has to be somebody who can relate to all the different types of subjects. Right? Even a politician is that way. Very different than a king, but still, if a politician can't relate, that was the problem with Trump. He was unrelatable entirely to people who weren't like him. So he was a caricature.
It was a what?
Caricature. He's like an exaggerated picture of one type of American. Very exaggerated, very not well-rounded. And a politician you have to touch a few bases. You can't just touch one. So there were things about him that appealed to others, but I don't think they identified with him. They couldn't identify with a lot of his character traits. He was like a hick that became wealthy and was like a good Christian, but not a Christian. It wasn't clear what he was, but he certainly wasn't touching on a lot of bases. And you can't win as a politician unless you can do that. So man, in that sense, to be able to rule over the animals, has to have something of all the animals in him. That's what that's how the Ishbitzer explains Naseh Adam. He didn't explain it himself, it's based on the Midrash, but he goes into a detail about it. That man is created from all the different forms of the animals. Okay. So he's not one particular form, one particular issue, like all the other creatures. When you look at their character traits, so animals are not complex. They're very one track. They're one thing. So what are they? So about dogs, you would say they're loyal. About cats, you would say they're individuals. Each animal is something else. I mean, like many have said, you can domesticate them, you can play with them, you can teach them tricks, but in the end they go back to their nature. You can't really get wild animals. So a cat, you can teach it like Rabbi Yonatan Eibschitz to walk around as a waiter for a few minutes. It's a famous story, whether it happened, didn't happen, I don't know. He had an argument with the Duke about whether or not he could teach the Duke decided that he could teach a cat to act like a waiter.
Yeah.
So he wagered with him that it was impossible. So he said, come to me in 3 months and you'll see that it's possible. So during those 3 months, Rabbi Yonatan caught a mouse and put him in a box. And he came to him at the designated time. And lo and behold, the cat was taught to walk on its hind feet and carry like a tray that was like on its neck. It had drinks on it. And it does this for like 2 minutes. It's walking around on its hind feet and it's serving drinks. So Rabbi Yonatan sees this and he takes the box out of his pocket and he lets the mouse loose. And it took all of a fraction of a second for the drinks to be up in the air and the tray to be nowhere to be found, and the cat's chasing the mouse. You showed him. You see, it's not real. You can train it to do something, but it's against its nature. And when you bring it back to its nature, it'll always fall back into its patterns. It can't break out of them.
I didn't know that story.
It's a famous story. It's a children's story. I don't know whether it's real or not. I never need moonshine to tell you about these stories, whether they're real or not. Maybe you wrote about it, I don't know. ואינו בבחינת מדרגה ומידה אחת מיוחדת לבד, כמו שערי הבורים, שכל אחד מידה מיוחדת בלתי הרכבה מזולתו כלל. So all the other creatures, they have one particular trait, and they're not composite. They're not made in a complex manner that they have many traits together, many faculties, many proclivities together. כמו שכתוב, את כל עוף כנף למינהו. נפש חיה למינה. When you say min,
Species.
so the translation l'chora is species, but really what you mean is that it has one particular trait. The early Christians, when we still cared about them, were called minim. Why are they called minim? Because what they do is they took one thing out of the sages, out of Chazal, and they blew it up and exaggerated it to the point that it became the be-all and where-all of everything. That's not Torah. Torah, by definition, is tikkun. Torah is always balanced. There's no balance there. There's always a sense of exaggerating.
And there's another group who said the living in Eretz Yisrael is the beginning.
It's called minim. So when you take something and you say, this is all of it. This is what I want. And everything else can go to where. And it doesn't matter. That's how they said it. What did they say? The only important thing is Mashiach. And the rest of the covenant is no longer relevant. Okay? So that's the big difference. If today a Mashiachist in Chabad says, for me everything is Mashiach. So you test him. Do you still put tefillin on? Do you still keep Shabbos?
Well, they do. Everybody.
Okay. So you see that it's not really what he says. He's not saying this is the only thing that counts. It's not true. He's just saying, for me, this is Zahir Tfei. I shine with this mitzvah. This is the mitzvah that I get my koch from. It's where I get my strength from. That's fine. But the sign of it being detached from Yiddishkeit is that there's no partzuf. We'll say this word a lot now. There's no persona. There's no complex picture. There's nothing balancing your religious life. It's all muteh. It's all, how do you say muteh? It's all exaggerated in one direction, to the point where the other directions don't exist.
Superficial?
No, muteh is like I'm biased. You're so biased in one direction that everything else falls away. That's exactly what they did. All you need is to believe in this yoshka, and that's it. It's finished. You don't need anything else. Even in the mitzvahs of Bnei Noach, so we see that Hashem didn't give them one mitzvah. Why? Because even a non-Jew has to be from the world of Tikkun. Not these made-up religions. that's apparently why the Rambam says that if a non-Jew makes up anything, it's already a false religion. Why? Because when they make things up, it comes from their hubris. And it ruins the balance. Because now this is the thing I love the most because I made it up. But Torah always wants everybody to be balanced. Every person, every human being has to be balanced. Okay, so you have to see a composite picture always. But by the animals it says every bird to its species. One species, this is what it does. This is what it's good at. This is its trait. And that's it. Chassidah, it's a chassid. That's it. It's never the opposite. That's how the Rebbe explains it. Why is she called a chassidah?
Because she's good to her family.
She's good to her family. Why is she tamei? She should be kosher. Isn't that the best thing?
Care about anybody else.
Okay, because I don't care about anybody else's children. I only care about my own. That lack of balance, that's the toll. That's what we mean to say. So here he brings it with the eagle. So he says, for example, in the animal world, in the how do you say it? In the avian world, and big word, avian. And what do you call the study of avionics of birds? No. Ology at the end. Ornithology. Thank you. So big words. So if you're an ornithologist, so you know that the eagle's special trait is that he's not just a chassid, not just loves his children. That would be the chassidah. The eagle is compassionate. He has compassion on his children. How do you see it? You see that he'll keep flapping his wings so that the full weight of the body is not on the nest. So that's compassion already. Nogea ve'no nogea. That's how it's described. Touching and not touching. So he's compassionate. And orev b'tivo achzari. And the raven, he's cruel. That's why he's called the crow. I guess crow is from cruel.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. You need to check it. We asked a few days ago, what's the difference between a crow and a raven, didn't we?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the... So there's no cruelty in the way that the eagle treats its offspring. And the other way around. The raven or the crow has nothing from the nature of the eagle. So it doesn't have any compassion. He's always cruel. Will never be anything else. Even once there will be an exhibit of compassion from a crow. Doesn't exist.
What does it mean, like nima?
Even a hair. Nima is a hair. There's not even a hairbreadth of compassion there. Ever. Why? The reason is because they were created in such a way that they're one track, they're one thing, they're one nature.
So then it's not their fault.
Okay, nobody said it is. And this is called Vainu Lefisha Shosham Olam Hato. And that's what we meant in the mimer, that the source of the animals is in the world of chaos. The world of chaos again means that there's only one trait always. Whatever it is, but there's only one thing. They all stand separate. It's like the colors in the tube still.
So those traits can never change?
They can never mix. Maybe within the tube there's a difference between if you take it from the beginning or the end. But it's still green. I don't know. But it can't become yellow because you can't mix it, or I don't know what else. It can't become orange because you can't mix it with red. Not saying the right mixture, but
whatever it is, yeah.
שהיו הספירות זה תחת זה. Because the sfirot in the world of chaos, they're described as being one under the other. So there's no connection. You only see what's above you and what's below you, but there's no possibility of mixture. For there to be mixture, then you have to look to the side. So I'll give you a good example. Anybody who trades on the stock market, he knows, or trades Bitcoin. So one of the things that you know is that when a chart is going up vigorously or down vigorously, it's a state of chaos. What does it mean that it's a state of chaos? That there's a lot of money to be made or lost, but it's unstable. The whole thing is just unstable. It's chaos. Because you see like a vertical line. You suddenly see something jumping up or suddenly falling down. And you can rest assured that it'll return back to the normal. It will go back up slowly or come back down slowly or quickly, but it will happen. A sign of an immature market is one that goes like crazy. A mature market is one where there's a lot of price discovery, it's called. And price discovery means that the market is trying a lot of prices as it moves up or it moves down. There's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of selling and buying. So there's a lot of volume. You have to be very careful when there's little volume and a lot of volatility, because that's where you lose the money. If something is very mature, it moves slowly. It's much better. That's why blue chip companies seldom make a jump more than 1% a day. Very seldom. If they do, you got to be worried. Why are they here? These markets, they're very slow. They don't move very quickly. But that's the sign of maturity. Why? Because it's trying everything. So when it's mature, it's sideways. It moves, but it moves sideways. That's the difference between the world of chaos and the world of rectification. That the world of chaos is up and down. It's like saying that the sfirot are one above the other. The world of rectification is when there's to your left and to your right. They're sideways. You can look to the sides.
But we do put the sfirot up and above each other. There is a...
Can, but everywhere that you go up or down, there's also something to the left or the right. The only place that there isn't, and that's why they're chaotic, is Keter, which is sometimes even called Tohu, just by its name. Sometimes Keter is just called Tohu. It's just called chaos. Why? Because relatively speaking, it's not conscious, so it's not really within the form of man. So, for instance, in the Tanya, he never mentions Keter. He mentions it once in some context. But whenever he lists the Sfirot, whenever he discusses anything that has to do with the Sfirot in the Tanya, he always starts from Chochmah. Why? Because it's a book of rectification. He's trying to teach you how to be a normal human being. Okay? Beinoni would really be a normalized human being, if you really had to translate it. It's Chaim Miller's new translation is very nice. He says, the book of in-betweeners, which is cute. But really, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to create a normal person. And when I say normal, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make them balanced. So in-between is cute, but it doesn't capture what he's really trying to do. He's not trying to tell you you're always in between, you're always going to be torn. That's not what he wants. He doesn't want you to feel torn. He wants to explain to you, look, in the moments in life when you feel that you don't have a grasp on things, and you can't understand why you acted this way, you can't understand why you did that, and you're not supposed to be this way, why did you do something so terrible, and whatever. I'm telling you, look, you're torn still. Don't think that you've brought everything together. But that's not the normal way that you should feel. A person shouldn't feel all the time that they're torn. That's not normal. You should feel that most of the time I'm okay, but I'm prone to doing terrible things. Why? Because I'm still not rectified. I still have an animal soul. So I'm in between. It's true. I'm in between my animal soul and my divine soul, so on. But I'm not supposed to feel tension all day long. That's not a way to live. It's also not healthy. So it's really, when he says Beinoni, he means I want to normalize you. The normalize means that you have to be composited, and so he doesn't even mention Keter. And Keter doesn't have anything to its left or right. Not only does it not have anything to its left or right, even the Sfirot within the Keter are one above the other. There's no left or right. All the way down to the Bina of Arich, which is in the neck. And then the first time that there's anything that's to the left and right is the Chesed and Gvura, which are really the Abba and Ima. I don't want to get into the whole explanation, but when you get into lower parts of the Keter, it begins to form on two sides, but it's still only two sides, there's no middle. So it's still not fully composite. In the world of Atzilus, in the form of man himself, there's already always a middle, left, and right axis. And so when you have three axes, you're already balanced. As everybody knows, if you want to, how many axes does a scale have?
Two.
No, it has to have three, because the middle is what's balancing it.
That's the fulcrum.
Right? If you don't have a fulcrum, there's no scale. They can't exist if you don't capture them in the middle. If you capture them somewhere off to the sides, it's not a scale anymore. In fact, it will just, be biased so much to one side that it'll be like just one axis. So a scale really has to have three axes. So that's what he says, that in the form of man, everything is left, right, and center. That's what we mean, the form of man. We don't mean particularly this nose and this ear. That's not what's important. The important thing is that the nose is in the middle and the ears are on two sides. It's the axes that are important. So there was no partzuf, there was no persona. And when we say persona, again, partzuf in Greek is the word persona, which means that there was nothing complex. There was no there was no it's funny. The word persona in Greek really meant a mask. And it was what the Greeks used in their drama to show that either somebody was happy or sad or angry or vengeful or whatever. They had a mask for each. And so it was the opposite. It was showing just one facet, just one character trait. So by the Greeks, the word persona actually was the epitome of chaos. The way they created the drama, like the cosmos, the order, was that these different images interacted. So really what they were doing was they were trying to break apart, they were trying to work through, which is what all literature does. It's trying to work through with a person to recognize his different facets. So the way they did this was they made it childlike. This person will be anger, and this actor will be laughter, and this actor will be envy, and this actor will be this. And now they interact. You write a play about how they all interact, and that's supposed to help the person understand himself better because you've taken it apart. By the way, there's a lot of modern psychology. It works exactly this way. There's family therapy, which is not with family. It's just one person sitting in a room. And now he has to take on the father inside of him, the mother inside of him, his role as a child, his role as a parent, his role as a grandfather, all the roles. And he has the therapist has the person express himself through each one of these characters. And he learns how to have them talk to one another. So a lot of people have a damaged father figure. So how do you fix it? It turns out that you're going to have to be the father. What can we do? You didn't have a father figure that was good. Then you're going to have to do it yourself. It's a do-it-yourself world if you didn't get it from your parents. So you got to learn how to do it. And it helps. We need to end, right?
Yes,
what is it, 9:10?
I can never work it out with that. I think the clock is always wrong anyway, even from the fact that it's an hour.
9:15. It says 9:10, but it's 9:15.
Right. Let's just finish down to the brackets.
So there were no personas yet. And again, the idea here of a persona is that there are many of them mixed together. But partzuf in Hebrew means, in Kabbalah, it means that all the sfirot are working together. All the different character traits are working together. And there were no kavin, there were no axes. It was just one axis. Shehu b'chinat hitkalelut. And this is what we mean by inter-inclusion. As we'll explain. The angels are not of man's form; they're from the animal form. When were they created? We talked about this. So they were created on the 5th day. That's one opinion. There's also an opinion they were created on the 2nd day. Why? Because they're likened to birds. The bird flying in the sky. Ve'of ze Michael, Yofef ze Gavriel. So the bird is Michael, the angel Michael, and Yofef will fly is Gabriel, says the Medrash. Zohar says this. Sorry. Hine Michael usar shel mayim. So Michael, he's the minister of water, meaning of love and of loving kindness. And Gabriel, he's the minister of fire, meaning he's the minister of might and of awe. Kol echad b'midah miyuchad, and each one is one particular trait. And that's why an angel cannot perform 2 different tasks. Even an angel like Michael or Gabriel that can, it's only one after another. They can't do them at the same time. But man is obviously combined from many different traits together, working together, even opposites. And so the highest level of psychology is when you can reach having the opposites work together.
So how does that fit in with women are supposed to be multitaskers and men are not supposed to be?
No, that you're talking about active abilities, meaning when you come to actually doing something, are your powers of action composite or not? Okay. Mm-hmm. So everybody's powers of actions are composite, because one of the most difficult things to learn, like in robotics, was, and still is not done very well, is how to get a robot to crack an egg.
Oh, yeah?
Why? Because think about it, it's very complex. On the one hand, you want to give enough push and force to crack it. On the other hand, you want to be holding it in such a way that you're not in your hand. And that's very difficult to get that balance. So obviously there have to be muscles that are contracting and there are muscles that are expanding at the same time. So that's in the power of action. Everybody has this. When you say that a woman is a multitasker, you say that at the level that the executive function works, the executive functioning of the brain, they have it better, that they can multitask better than men do. But it doesn't mean that men really can't. I mean, it just means that they're not used to it. Very good. So we'll meet again tomorrow.
But I have to go